version. So it's already made some improvement. See if it works a little bit better. I actually tackle, mainly address the problem Jack pointed out. Because those two big projects that he did, considered as the only two accomplishments for him, we want to turn this around and make it sound less negative, turn it to something a little bit more positive experience. So we actually changed the tone of voice and changed the wording, changed the way we describe things, and then make it a positive learning experience despite of the outcome. That's what we did. And also the reason why I told him to add the English version of the project titles, because when he just put everything in plain words, like layman Chinese, like really, really plain Chinese, we don't feel, it doesn't really project any professionalism, any kind of particular engineering knowledge to me. Not until he actually put the English equivalence in the parentheses. So all of a sudden I feel, okay, there is some professionalism coming out from it. And that part, because we actually shrinked it, because it wasn't doing anything, right? Claire was saying too general. So because it's saying nothing, so we actually shrink it. I said, you're saying nothing, why wasting your space? We just cross it out, cross it out. I actually crossed it out a lot of things. And he just all of a sudden, I think his biggest failure was actually, sense of failure is coming from me. Because I actually crossed out a lot of things. Because a lot of times, if you are not saying anything, if your writing is not saying much, then you really have to think about, saying much really depends on from reader's perspective. If I don't feel I'm reading anything valuable, then the whole thing doesn't really have much meaning to it. Then it will be put aside. So that's the way it works. 所以你们知道，这求职上就是很残忍的一件事情。然后也有人会特别注意 writing， 像 Linda 讲的，就是有人会注意那个 flow。Why? Because a lot of times people complain that college graduates cannot write, cannot have decent writing. Not only Taiwanese, we're talking about United States, American students too. American college actually created in their curriculum, they actually, in response to the employer's demands, they created a W refers to writing, curriculum for 2 years of college time. Every student will have to pass that curriculum because they don't write well. The employers complain about the very poor writing from college graduates. So that's why writing is considered very, very important, the ability to write. So that's why I also spent some time to improve the flow. So maybe this time you feel the paragraphs flow a little bit better. But rest assured that this kind of revision really takes time, and you really need someone who is super critical to do this for you. And also discussion. As a college graduate, right, he feels that he doesn't really have much to share. All these were under the help. They actually come from his mouth, from his memory, under the help of my sister. My sister kept asking him about the project that he did, and then the process, and also the team members and all that. It's all, for some reason, buried in his memory. It really, it was completely absent from his first version. So, I personally think that, 不是有一阵子学校在推那个学习历程那个东西，你们进来的时候有一个 portfolio， 对不对？那你们有做吗？你们不做怎么记得自己做了哪些事情？ 啊，你们也不写日记，啊也不 po IG， 啊也那时候又没有遇到 Gina 老师，没有教你做 website， 啊那你怎么记得自己做什么事情 ？So for some reason it's like suffering from memory loss. We're like, what happened to you the past 4 years, 7 years, right? Anyway, so that's that. This is the second version of the resume. It looks so much better. Finally. Why? Because he added the content under every experience. And when he talked about stability, he also mentioned about the sub-disciplines of all different kinds of course completed. Basically, like when he talked about like the physics experiments, what are the experiments have you done? You have to tell people. From these, people were finally convinced that he did graduate from that department, okay? Otherwise, your resume doesn't really tell whether you cannot really tell whether you have any kind of expertise or not. So actually, I asked him to pull out all his coursework. 我还叫他把他的那个成绩单给我捞出来，瞪着成绩单一颗一颗给我想，小雨在里面做了些什么事情。那时候 Rich 他们也是啊，对不对？一颗一颗瞪着想，你的 project 做了什么 project，research 做了什么 research， 你的 term paper 做了什么东西，你都不记得了，对不对？不记得吗 ？Right? So also like talking about like with certain skills, what do you do with that skills? What is the excellence or how skillful you are with that with regard of that skills? And I specifically asked him to have English equivalents included in this resume because he doesn't have much to write. 所以呢，版面让他冲一下，中英对照一下。That's why I asked him to put a lot of the English equivalent. 代表毕业生演讲，哪个学校叫他写出来，对不对？很累。This is like 6.0 version. I don't understand why is it so difficult, but it happened to be that way. So this is something that also, after reading his resume and also his bio, this is my realization. It's such a waste. It's such a waste for him to live in the United States for more than 7 years and come back with this little experience. You see the big contrast between his and the 学姐 I just showed you, right? 那个静红海那个学姐，你看那个 resume 差多少？一个是在台湾念的，一个是在美国念的。那个履历表真的是差多少？我就在想说，真的有时候不见得出国读书就一定是人生胜利组，不见得就一定是。You have to look beyond that surface. So I personally think that getting the basic education here in Taiwan, college education here in Taiwan, is actually a really good blessing because you actually have choices. You have choices of doing all different kinds of things with very low budget, if I may say, because it's so expensive. 你知道他们，我那天问他妈妈，我说他这7年在美国花了多少钱？我实在太俗气了，对不对？可是你们好奇吗？啊，那你们要猜一下吗？1000万。1000万，是高中加大学吗？是吗？来 ，I'll take other bidders. 500万，500million. 你们都是随便喊的，对吧？10 million. 10 million. for 7 years. 10 million is considered one house in 民雄 already. 所以他走在路上就看到一栋房子在走路。So it was a shame that he didn't really make the best use of the environment, right? That environment could really provide a lot of. 我说你都没有社团，他说没有，我没去社团。我说我们去社团，他没什么好玩的。不讲。So anyway, so after working on his resumes and short bio, I just feel so happy for my students. 你知道你们在这边1年花多少钱而已嘛，对不对？它的1000万分之一嘛，真的很便宜。台湾的学费又便宜，生活费又便宜，民雄又更便宜，对不对？然后陈时中自从颁布了那个说山林，那个属于山林还有海边。人烟稀少的地方可以不戴口罩。我说我们就是这样的地方啊，对不对？第一次，很高兴我们比台北的学校，对不对？更那个，对不对？高雄的学校，just make the best use of what you're. If life presents you a card, you just make the best of that card. Just don't complain.